I discovered my 87-year-old grandmother was secretly a famous romance novelist with millions of readers. Last Christmas, I was helping Grandma Eleanor clean out her attic when I found a locked trunk behind stacks of old photo albums. When I asked about it, she hesitated, then said it was just some old writing, and quickly changed the subject. Something in her voice made me curious. Grandma Eleanor had been a high school English teacher for 40 years. She'd never mentioned being a writer herself. 3 days later, while she was at her bridge club, I found the key taped under her desk drawer and opened the trunk. Inside were dozens of manuscripts, publishing contracts, royalty statements, and fan letters, all addressed to Rose Winters, author of over 30 romance novels with titles like Midnight in Madrid. I grabbed one book with a particularly steamy cover and flicked it open. The dedication read, "To my husband James, who showed me that great passion exists beyond the page." James was my grandfather who had passed away 10 years ago. I nearly dropped the book. A quick internet search confirmed Rose Winters had sold over 4 million books worldwide. Her novels were described as revolutionary for their era and pushing boundaries of female desire. The most recent had been published just last year when Dramama was 86. I was still sitting surrounded by manuscripts. When Dramama returned early from bridge, she froze in the doorway, her eyes moving from the open trunk to the book in my hands. "I can explain," we both said simultaneously over tea. She told me everything. How she'd started writing in 1975 when Hoas was working late shifts and she was bored. How her first manuscript was rejected 12 times before a small publisher took a chance. How she'd chosen a pen name because Eleanor Jenkins, high school teacher, couldn't possibly write about passionate encounters in Mediterranean villas. "But why keep it secret from the family?" I asked. She stirred her tea slowly. At first it was embarrassment. The books were quite progressive for their time. She smiled mischievously. Then it became liberating, having this secret identity. In town I was Mrs. Jenkins, who reminded students about calmer rules, but in my writing room I was Rose Winters, who understood desire and adventure. Her eyes sparkled. "Besides, can you imagine your father's face if he knew his mother wrote that scene in Venetian Nights that got banned in 3 states? I couldn't help laughing at the thought of my straight-laced accountant father discovering his mother wrote best-selling romance novels. "Here is a book signing in Chicago next month," she said hesitantly. Rose Winters' first public appearance in 30 years. I wasn't going to go, but "We're going," I said immediately. "I'll drive you." The bookstore was packed with hundreds of women clutching dog-eared copies of Drama's books. When she walked in wearing a deep red blazer instead of her usual pastels, the crowd erupted. Many readers were in tears, telling her how her books had changed their lives, helped them through divorces, given them courage to seek love again. One woman in her 70s approached with a book so worn the pages were falling out. "I've read this every year since my husband died," she told Dramama. "It reminded me that passion doesn't end with age." Grandma signed it. "Remember, the best chapters may still be unwritten, Rose." On the drive home, Grandma was quiet, watching the city lights fade into the darkness of country roads. "I've been thinking," she finally said. "It's time for Rose Winters to write her memoir, the real story behind the stories." She patted my hand. "But I'll need someone to help organize all those manuscripts. Someone who can keep a secret but also knows when it's time to share it." Memoirs of Rose Winters hit the New York Times bestseller list. The author photo shows my grandmother at her desk, smiling directly at the camera for the first time in her 60-year career at her 88th birthday party last week. Dad was still processing the revelation. "I just don't understand," he kept saying. "Passionate scenes." Grandma winked at me. "Where did you think you came from, dear?"